we knew that Christmas was coming up and the president was going to hand out some Christmas presents to some very blessed people. And I wasn't sure if I was on the list. I wasn't sure when I was going to be on the list. But I had an assurance in myself that I was going to make it out of there on someone's list. And December 18th was like a odd day. My day started at 5 o'clock in the morning. I was wakened by the guard. Get up, you're going out on a medical trip. But I was like, medical trip? They'll be here 5:30. 5:30. I said, I gotta hit the shower. No, you're not hitting the shower. Yes, I'm hitting the shower. I don't know what doctor I'm going to, and they're not gonna be probing on me, and I haven't showered. So I ran and took a shower, and the officer was there to pick me up, and he was like, I told you, be ready. I'm coming. So I finished getting myself prepared, and I went in the hallway, and the officer had cuffs in his hand, and he said, turn around. I was like, this is odd. Why are you handcuffing me? And he was like, don't worry about it. We're okay. I said, well, to tell someone in handcuffs not to worry, and they didn't do anything, do you not think they're going to worry? And so he just looked at me and took me to the shoe. So when I arrived at the shoe, the officer there said, you had an MPO. You should have been in here last night. We just have to make sure you don't eat because you're having a procedure done today, and we want to make sure that you're okay. And I was like, all right, fine. He says, just go into the holding cell. Someone will be there shortly. So I'm thinking shortly, maybe I would leave out maybe 7:30. So long story short, I was sitting in there, and I'm a worshiper. I love to sing to God, and I love to tell him what he means to me. And it may sound crazy for a person that was sentenced to life in prison to say that they love to sing to God and tell him what he means to them after sitting 21 years. But if I understand the Bible, and I think I do, Joseph suffered unjustly in prison. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego was thrown into the fiery furnace. They believed. You had Paul and Silas, who was whipped and thrown into prison, and there they was at midnight. They were bleeding, and they were in a prison that I was in the Marriott compared to where they were. They were in a dungeon, and they were shackled to the floor and bleeding, and they had no legal representation. They did not make that one phone call to the family to let them know where they were. They didn't even feed them. And they were singing praises to God at midnight. For 21 years, I experienced a midnight, and I felt that my praise and my worship is what sustained me and what was going to bring me through. And I began to sing a song, thank you, Lord, for all you've done for me. And I just blessed him for blessing me that morning. And I laid down on the bed because I started to get cold, and I said, you know what would be funny? And I'm talking to myself, but I was talking out loud. I said, it would be funny if when I get back from the hospital today that my team would be waiting for me in the unit to tell me that I have received clemency. And I started laughing, and I was like, uh-oh, I don't want nobody to think I'm crazy, but this is how I'm feeling today. And so I took a nap. And I think because I took a nap, I think I'm still dreaming sometimes, because they woke me up and took me to the hospital. And when I arrived back to the facility, an officer that I particularly did not like because we had a lot of problems, she always cut my money. I had like 4 or 5 jobs, and she said I worked too much, I made too much money. It wasn't coming out of her pocket, but she was offended by the amount of money I was making. So when she came, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's here to tell me I can't have one of my jobs. So I'm thinking she's taking my job from me. But it was her appearance, the smile on her face. I was like, why is she looking like Ronald McDonald? What is going on? And so she walks up to me and she says, I've been looking for you everywhere. I went to your unit, you wasn't there. I went to SEG, you wasn't there. And then they told me you went on a trip. And I was like, oh my gosh, why is she on me like this? So I'm having this, awfulization going on in my head and not really being receptive to what she says. But she said something that caught my attention. She says, well, the president called this morning. I was like, did she say president? I was like, wait, what did you say? So she said, we got a call today and you are free. You're being released. I was like, somebody. And I had to stop and really play back a couple of times what she had just said. And I just broke down crying because waiting so long and I'm finally hearing it. And as I stated, I had already had my vision of how it was going to play out. She was not a part of that vision. And so it took a minute to absorb that she was the actual messenger and not my unit team. And so one of the ladies was like, well, what you crying for? You should be happy you going home. I was like, I am happy I'm going home. Well, how much time did you do? I said 21 years. She said 21 years. I said, yes. And so the other officer was like, well, what was your sentence? I said, life. She was like, life. And then they started crying. I was like, oh my God, no wonder you're crying. And before I know it, all of the officers coming out of the different offices, what's going on, what's going on? And so they started sharing that the president had granted me the clemency and that I was going home. And I think before I could make it over, it's 2 buildings. So R&D is in the west side and I was housed in the east side. So by the time I got to the east side, everybody in both buildings knew about it. So it was like I became the poster child of MDC Brooklyn. So many officers stopped by and wished me well and congratulated me. And many of them knew that I was filing and they believed that I was going to get it. And so I went back to the unit. I said, I got to go call my family. So I went back to the unit and I ran up to my counselor's office and she said, I knew about it. I couldn't tell you. I wanted to come and tell you. I knew you were still downstairs in the issue. I wanted to tell you about it. She said, but I couldn't tell you. She says, congratulations. And, you know, she was crying. I was crying. We were all crying. And so when I called and I was making phone calls and I talked to my son and he was like, well, who did you call? Who have you told? And I said, you. He says, I'm like, you mean like you told me like I'm the fun? He was just stumbling over his words like, I'm the first one. Yes. He was like, oh my God, oh mommy, are you really coming home? And it was like, I waited so long to tell my sons that this part of my life was over. And God, I just prayed, Lord, please give me the opportunity. I wanted their faith to increase. I wanted them to know that God was able. I wanted them to know that it didn't matter what it looked like, that God was going to bring us through this situation. And so to tell him and to hear the excitement in his voice was priceless. It was, I thought he was going to faint. He was like, Mommy, are you telling the truth? Are you really, you're coming home? And it's like, yes, son, I'm coming home. I told you, never give up. My day was coming and I'm coming home. So, he was like, I'm on the internet. And I was like, you're on the internet? I said, don't tell nobody. No, I have to tell everybody. I'm going to tell. So he gets on the internet and he starts to Facebook everybody that I was coming home. My youngest son, he has been so angry with me about this whole process, and he's like, he stopped calling me mommy. He started calling me Ramona. And I said, well, if that's what you feel, call me what you want. But when I spoke to him that night and he got on the phone, he sounded like my 3-year-old. He was like, mommy, is it true? Are you really coming home? And I was like, yes, baby, I am. Mommy is finally coming home. So it was the best day of my life to know that this chapter was actually being closed and another one opening. So finally I went and I told one of the ladies, I directed the choir, and I went and I told her, and I just mouthed to her and I said, I'm going home. And she says, what? And she just fell down on the floor. She's like, thank you, God. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. And so her mother-in-law did a lot of petitioning for me with her church members. I was like, tell your mom, tell her I said thank you for everything that she did. And so we went to the computer, and she's in the middle of doing the sending the email, and she jumps up out of the chair. She whispers to me, and she says, well, why you don't want anybody to know? And I said, I don't know, just, let's keep it under wraps for a minute, and we'll, and I couldn't get it out of my mouth. She jumped up. She was like, oh no. She said, attention in the unit, town hall, get up out your beds right now. I mean, town hall, get up. And so I looked over at my counselor, and she's sitting in her office like this, like, she didn't budge. She didn't try to stop, and it was like help me, And so people they're listening to her. People got up out of their beds, and they started coming to the day room. And she said, this lady has done 21 years, and she believed God for her release, and she's going home. And they were screaming and hollering and crying and jumping up and down, and just people that I disciplined only because I knew they could do better, and I thought they couldn't stand me. They were like the first ones there, and they were hugging and kissing me, and it was like, you just don't know. I draw strength from you. You just made it these 21 years. Oh my God, and the well-wishers, and there was the Muslim, the Jews, the Christians. I mean, everything was broken that moment. We were all sisters in the struggle, and it was just such a blessing. They came around and they hugged. And one of the ladies that's a Muslim, I call her my mom. She's in her 70s, and she's struggling with her health. And she said, let's sing the song she always sings. And I'm standing there watching this Muslim lead out in a song that she hears me sing. And I'm like, look at God, like, this is one of those moments that you can say, this is a God thing. And I don't know how long we were embracing each other, and just caught up in that moment. It was a beautiful day that day. December 18th.